moderation, la, 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 close. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to start by dropping your links in the chat. And then, how dare you? Ooh, that's exactly 200 characters. Okay. Yes, I'm like this all the time. I just talk to myself constantly.
It's a pleasure to watch your brain at work.
Okay. I don't know why we started streaming.
Are we live?
Okay, I'm going to mute the YouTube. So there is a 20 second lag on everything. But okay, we got 40 people. So we've got critical mass. So let's get started. Hey, party people. Welcome to today's live stream. I am so excited. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to answer a question I get a ton on this channel, and that is, Zoe, how do I make fashion friends? How do I meet people in fashion, especially if you don't live in a fashion capital? And another thing I get is, I'm so introverted. Like, I don't, people, whatever. Listen, you just got to do the thing. The internet is a beautiful gift and you just got to go do the thing. Okay. I met today's guest on Clubhouse. Okay. I was like running around the fashion rooms on Clubhouse trying to find fashion people so I can just talk about stupid fashion stuff because I'm a fashion geek. And I met these two and we eventually like moved our conversations to Instagram. They're like, oh, Zoe, you're so pretty and you're so cool. Can we be friends? And that's what happened. And we've been friends ever since. And I've been following their careers and watching their shenanigans. One of them was on Love Island for a second. And my sister thought that that was the coolest thing I've ever done, was know someone on Love Island, which tells you a lot about my sister. And she's like, my friends are like graphic designers and architects, and you have a friend on Love Island. I'm like, I didn't do anything about that. I didn't do any of that. But the point I'm trying to make, because I also made a lot of friends on Clubhouse, not just these two. The point is you have to go out there and listen. I am also rather introverted. Whenever I do a big presentation, public speaking engagement, run a big meeting, I do need to like pass out on the futon and stare at the ceiling and be like, oh, I hate people for about, for a little while. And that is just a thing that you need to do. Like the alternative is to do nothing and meet no one. So you just have to go ahead and put yourself out there, get on the apps, get on Twitter and start talking to people. Okay. For those of you who don't know, I have a Discord community full of just my subscribers. So if you want to make friends with them, go join my Discord. I'll drop the link in the description box, all that good stuff. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you sustainable fashion advocates and models, Brett and Scott Staniland. Would you like to introduce yourselves to my audience?
Are you making me go first? Okay. Hi, I'm Brett. I was the one she was referring to when she started speaking about Love Island, unfortunately. But yeah, I've been a model. I started off as a model many years ago. I actually got scouted late for a model. But it's funny that Zoe started the conversation about like making friends and stuff, because we actually did like a year in the industry without really finding anyone we were close with or relatable or anything like that. So yeah, we did the things that Zoe just said too. And then anyway, we'll come on to that, but I'll let Scott do his thing too.
Yeah, so similarly to Brett, apart from the Love Island stuff, started off as a model, and then we became much more opinionated about the brands and people we were representing, and so kind of pigeonholed ourselves into a more sustainable fashion industry and only started working with brands that aligned with our values. And that's kind of grown over the last few years. And then we became connected with Zoe through Clubhouse and talking about sustainable fashion. And I also work in climate change and broader sustainability things, working with things like electric vehicles and WWF and charities and wetlands and all of that good stuff too.
Scott, when are you going to lend me a car?
If you lived in England, we could have done so many cool trips together. But because you live in Oakland, which I'm very jealous of,
I mean, you should be. It's very nice here, but I'm so upset. I'm so upset.
We're
What's the
literally we're going to Oxford for 2 days this week on a car trip as well. So I'll be sure to send you all the videos.
It is hard though, because we work with, like, we have friends at Aston Martin, and then they're like, oh, we'd love to give you our new V8 Vantage Turbo. And I'm just like, yeah, I can't like really do anything with that because my audience would definitely call me out for it. So
oh, I've been thinking about this a ton. This concept of creative compromise and making the content that you want, and also like making sure that you're giving something to your audience that they want, and having a relationship with them and engaging with them. And I talked about this with a different group of people, all creatives in their own right. And there was a bunch of people who agreed with me about this sort of like going back and forth with your audience about giving them what they want, which is something I do a lot on my channel. Is most of my videos are based off of video requests, but a lot of the time, creators want to do whatever they want to do, and they're like, I'm just going to post whatever I want to post and then let my audience find me. I do want to do a video on that at some point. I just want to check in on the chat and make sure people are watching. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that things aren't going awry before we start the questions. All right. First question. And these are all from my audience. None of these are my questions. So, don't get mad at me. All right. Number 1, how are you so fabulous?
You 100% wrote that.
I did not, actually. Whoever wrote it, come out and say so in the comments. I will actually screen grab it and send it to you as proof. I have the proof.
were they asking, are they asking us how we're so fabulous, or you how you're so fabulous?
They already know how I'm so fabulous,
right.
so it's no longer a question.
Because it's funny, when you're introducing the Clubhouse route, I was going to say, like, we were around Clubhouse and looking for a bunch of cool people and listening to loads of sustainability chats and loads of cool fashion design chats. And then after all of that, we found Zoe and just connected really fluidly over a bunch of different things completely unrelated to that. Being fabulous, I don't know. Having cool friends. That's what it is.
It's all about
that's such a diplomatic
misdirection.
cop-out. That is the most diplomatic cop-out I've ever heard.
It's sleep deprived, water deprived, social life deprived, and then you just get all that time to go and work on yourself.
I remember one time there was this photo of the two of you in some press thing, and I said, Brett, your jawline looks so good there. He's like, it's from clenching my teeth in my sleep.
It's when all the times I want to have an opinion on something and I end up just biting my tongue and grinding my teeth because I'm not allowed to say what I want to say.
You guys are the worst at accepting compliments. Just get over it.
Horrible. Hate it so much.
Also, the worst when people say, oh, Brett's like really handsome. I'm like, no, he's not. No, he's not. I get that one all the time.
This sticks with me forever. One of the weirdest compliments I ever had was, you look like an alien, but in a hot way.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
What the heck does that mean? I
know,
want to see this
aliens.
alien.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves? What kind of alien?
What does that even mean? Okay, I don't know. People are fun and interesting. All right, next question. Is working as a model a good opportunity to learn about the fashion industry? If so, what's the most important or special thing you've learned?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think when you're younger and you're a model, you don't kind of take in everything that's around you because you just go to castings and all you're focused on is getting the job. That's all you care about because, money is important, and you miss out on meeting the casting director who also might be close with the production, who's close with the designer and all of those sorts of things. And as you get older and grow into it a bit more, we've found like it's been so amazing to meet creative directors and talk through clothes and then meet PR people, but then meet other creators. And so I think the opportunities to meet people around Fashion Week and those sorts of conversations are amazing. Even just last Fashion Week, we did men's in Milan and went to the Missoni presentation. and Filippo Grazioli's just there, just talking through his collection that he's designed with his team. And it's just like, when you're in the presence of someone and they're just explaining their creativity and their inspiration and their design kind of elements and all of that stuff, you're just there, just soaking it all up like a sponge. If you'd have told me that when I first started modeling, I would have thought like that's completely uncorrelated. But yeah, I think for those circumstances, it's amazing to meet people.
I think, like Scott's right, you put in front of so many different people, especially like creatives. But Scott and I both, as I said earlier, Scott and I both struggled at the start because we both come from different careers. I worked in academia for 10 years, and Scott had been in academia and then done other jobs before we got into modeling. And we spent basically a year, and because we had a different kind of mindset, we were modeling since we were 15, both had different jobs, didn't drink or do drugs. And so we're a little less social than the rest of the industry. We found it hard to find people who are like our type of people. So I think a lot of people do still struggle, but he's right. As you grow into the industry, you're meeting photographers and designers and stylists, and there's such a massive array of people that you can bump into. And usually you're literally one person away from knowing someone. Even if you're going all over Europe, the person you're speaking to more than likely knows one person that you know. So it is a really good place to meet people, and especially now online, like, you know, discussions like meeting, like we would unlikely bump into each other, Zoe, but luckily through Clubhouse and Instagram and everything, we've become well connected. So the fashion industry is great for meeting people, I would say.
So I think you guys were just in Paris. I half expected you to still be in Paris when you logged on today. What were you doing there?
We did Men's Fashion Week. So we did Florence, we did Pitti Uomo in Florence, got the train to Milan, did a few days in Milan, and then flew to Paris and did Men's Fashion Week in Paris. And then it's Couture, which has just come to an end. And then end of February will be Women's Fashion Week, which is like the big one. But Paris Men's and Milan Men's is awesome. I wish London went as hard for that as they do.
London has its own vibe, though.
Yeah, it's been funny to see it transition, especially from like men's, where it used to be London Collections Men, and then it was integrated with Women's Fashion Week, and then it was his own thing, like Men's London Fashion Week. And now it's kind of like not doing anything at the moment. But Fashion Week in London is kind of known for the designers that go on to do big things. So everyone's got their eye on London as like, oh, which designer is going to go next to Louis Vuitton? And we've got, you know, people like Martine Rose and Grace Wells Bonner and Bianca Saunders, who now shows in Paris. So we've got all of these amazing designers that also have good sustainability initiatives integrated from the very start of their brand too. So I think everyone keeps an eye on London just to figure out who's going to go where next.
That's cool. Okay, so, you know, the person who asked this kind of said it in a cheeky way, but I do think that this is a legitimate concern for how we view beauty in the world. And that question is, are you scared of getting old and losing your pretty faces? And like I said, it's a cheeky way to put it, but do you think about aging and your longevity in the industry and people's perception of age, and especially mixed with gender?
Brett, as the older twin, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I'm 2 minutes older, by the way, everyone. So yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be 30 this year. And we started modeling when we were like 23 or 24, I think. But aging is something I think we all think about, but the way the industry is going at the moment, there's more exposure for particularly older men. We get it a lot easier, unless you're like one of the supers in the women's category. You have some more longevity than the rest of the industry, but for men at least, I think we have longer careers in general. But also the way that the industry now sees age is changing too. It's becoming more inclusive. Even for the last round of fashion weeks we've just done, there was some catwalks with like 50, 60, 70-year-old men even. I do feel like there's the middle ground now, which we're both approaching though, which is kind of like just the middle, like the 30s essentially, or like maybe 28 to 35, where it's kind of, you're not like a young boy or a fresh face, but you're also not like the silver fox kind of guy too. And it's kind of this weird middle ground. So it's going to be interesting navigating that. But I mean, I think I'm personally like, I'm not, because, and I say this to every single model, always have a few other things that you are passionate about, that you find interesting, that you might then be able to fall back on. We obviously have a bunch of other things going on. And so even when I got into modeling, I was able to take rejection quite easily because I could just take it or leave it. Now I absolutely love it. Rejection is part of the industry. I love the industry. But you know, it was one of those things, like I've got things to fall back on. So if this goes head over tit, then it's okay. We can do other things. So I'd always advise people, like loads of models I know get into the industry and then start talking to photographers and think, oh my God, I want to try photography, or I want to try styling, or want my own magazines, things like that. So yes and no.
I would say the day of the model where the model just turns up, does the shoot, goes home, is kind of dying a little bit. And I think models now, are the traditional sense, coupled up with social media and stuff, should stand for something. I think you need your own brand alignment. So, for example, if a designer is going to book you, they're going to book you because they like your look, but also two other things. Is it you a lot, you know, you care about fashion and design and their style is your style? Is it, you know, you're a big sustainability activist or advocate? Like we just saw Caroline Issa walk for Marine Serre. And I think that's a really interesting one, because Caroline is of the older category when it comes to a model. She runs Tank magazine, but she also stands for XYZ, is very passionate about the planet. And so it's a great brand alignment, as well as she's a great face for the brand as well. So I would say, like, have personality and stand for things which will help you stand out.
Even like, do you remember that video that Teddy posted, Teddy Quinlaven? They just posted like a video about going, they walked Chanel a couple of times under Carl, and then went back after Carl had obviously passed, and Virginia was there. And they're like, oh yeah, before they come to the casting, can you just make sure they're not wearing anything crazy like they usually wear, because it's it doesn't reflect well on us? And she was like, no, and didn't even go to the casting. She was like, I'm not, they were like, I'm not going to go if I can't be myself, so I'm not going to go. Things like that, like be true to yourself and have values.
I think the key takeaway is it's easier for men. That's the key takeaway, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking about your friend, Richard. I think I don't know how old he is, but he does look much older. He has like a shock of gray hair. He's got like borderline hot Santa vibes, right? He's gonna get there once the rest of his hair goes white, I think. And how he doesn't look out of place in any sort of fashion shoot he does, because we're, as a society, are, you know, we think it's okay for older men to be hot or whatever. Whereas older women, it's more of we're getting in there, where we have some nice examples, but it's like not as widely accepted.
Yeah, I think the older man's been sexualized for a lot longer than like the older woman in fashion. The reason Richard is such a good model is, one, he's an extremely nice guy. Two, he's very versatile. And so when you hang around with him, his personality is, I feel like we're all 27, like when we all hang out. And that's important too, to have on a shoot and when you're in all those environments. But Richard's versatile. If he shaves all his beard off and slicks all his hair back, he looks extremely high-end runway model, which is his bag for many years. If he grows his beard out and curls his hair, he can look really commercial. He's still lean and can do sportswear. He's really versatile and can do skincare, can do so many jobs, and that's what makes him a good model. He's approaching a birthday this year, but I just, with people like him, he's been in the industry a while because he's been doing it the right way for the last few years, and so he's going to have a lot of longevity too. But yeah, it's interesting. Did you see the Row lookbook recently? The casting was amazing. The women in there, one in particular was Stephanie Cavalli, slightly older woman of color. I think, I'm not sure where she's from, but she has like a wisp of gray hair and like a little bit of wrinkles. And honestly, when I saw, I was like, this woman is beautiful, like so stunning. And I was happy to see, when I saw the comments on Twitter, I think it went around, everyone was like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Definitely, I think in her late 30s or 40s even. So it's nice to see a little bit here and there, and hopefully more happens. I think Le Mer, the Row, Hermes, those kind of brands will bring it to more masses.
Yeah, I think that you were right before that. I think people find a lot of appeal in the very youthful, fresh face. And then there's a lot of appeal in that older, kind of sexy, older kind of person. And I think that's true for both genders. It's a sort of like middle ground, like in your 30s, where it's like they don't know where to put you, like in this category, like very specific category or this one. And yeah, it's a weird thing. I'm 43. People tell me all the time I don't look like I'm in my 40s. I'm gonna, we don't do Korean age anymore. Like the new Korean president is abolishing it. So I'm
You texted
actual
me when
40
that happened, furious, like so angry.
because I hate the Korean president. Okay, don't tell
Like
anybody.
out of
But
nowhere, Brett, you're not going to believe what's happened. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine,
because
Zoe.
it's
How are you?
bananas. And also, you're like one of my friends who was like, "What the hell is Korean age? What is happening? Why are you so old?"
No idea.
But yeah, I'm like 43 now, like just internationally 43. And people tell me I look so young and I don't look 43, blah, blah, blah. And that's all lovely. And I know people mean them as compliments. I absolutely get that. But I'm just kind of like, my age is earned. Like my experience is earned. And I am genetically blessed. Okay. I do rudimentary skincare. I don't spend a lot of money and I don't spend a lot of time. I just moisturize a lot. But yeah, it's definitely a thing where the youth, like looking more youthful, is such a prize. It's an automatic compliment. And I don't know. I just honestly, like, I like being not so ugly that people can watch me on video and still subscribe to me. But also, I'm not so beautiful that people don't take me seriously. Like they don't assume I slept my way somewhere because I'm not that level beautiful. So I'm just happy where I am. And I prefer the compliments that are more like, wow, I really learned something new today. Thank you. Or you're such a good teacher. Like those, like I hold dear. But then again, I don't make my money off my looks. Like I'm not a model. I've never been the more beautiful sister or anything, just like whatever. Like, I think my relatives in Korea were like really surprised when I got married. They're like, oh, she got married. I'm like, what? Oh, she married a white guy. Okay. Like that was like, oh,
That explains it.
that explains it.
It's
Oh,
funny
and
for us, like,
You just
yeah, go on, Brett.
created a just pretty enough to have not slept your way through the industry. I love that.
that's my claim to my looks, just ugly enough to be taken seriously.
It's funny though, because obviously at the start, all the models just rely on their appearance. They don't have a name, they don't have a voice, nothing. And
Right.
we got really adamant on being very specific about being more than that. And so I want people to know about my voice. I want people to know what I stand for online, all that stuff. And I
Well,
don't
that's
want them
because
to
we
say,
clocked that our faces won't last.
yeah,
I think that's what it was.
potentially. But it was like, I don't want people to book white guy number 4. I want them to book Brett specifically. So I think that's where it came, like wanting to stamp the stuff.
Yeah, it's when we realized just how disposable you are as a model. There's a million people that can just take your spot at any one time. And I distinctively remember going to like an Armani or a Dolce & Gabbana casting before we don't shop Dolce anymore. But I remember being in a queue of about 100 guys that look exactly like us, just a little bit more tanned and in crop top skinny vests. And I was just like, what is the point in us being here?
I
And
mean,
so
people make all those jokes about all you Asians look alike, but I'm like, have you seen white guys?
Go
have
to a
you seen a
D&G
Dolce
Go
casting?
to a
Yeah.
D squared casting. It is insane. I felt like I was on The Simpsons.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, so we're kind of like reaching into the fashion industry and kind of your view of how things function. The question is, why do brands have a normal sweater that goes up to thousands of dollars? Is there really a difference between high luxury and normal clothing, or is it the brand's name? And before you answer that, I would just like to say, I prepared some pictures to do our little vocabulary lesson later on. And there is a $13,000 sweater from Loro Piana in the pictures. And when you see it, you're like, shut up. Absolutely not.
Is this from the young Mongolian goats?
It'll be a cashmere. It'll be a goat in Afghanistan somewhere that's probably got a
It's the
crown on
goat
its
in
head.
Mongolia
Oh my
that they realized that the young ones
is this?
specifically, and there was only one crop, they could get this specific fiber that was softer than when they aged, and it took them something like 25 years to make this sweater and do all the research for it. And the other thing is that they own the market for it because no one else can do it. So then they get to dictate the price too. It's kind of like De Beers and diamonds.
Still ridiculous,
So,
by the way.
okay,
Still.
the De Beers and diamonds thing is a really interesting comparison because we all know the diamond industry is pure marketing. Okay. And on the design end, I've worked with Loro Piana as a materials vendor. Like I've made things out of Loro Piana cashmeres because I was an outerwear designer for a while. And I mean, there's the fashion geek in me who loves everything you just said about how one of a kind something is. But when you see this sweater, okay, like
On the appearance and on the face
the
of it.
ends have to justify the means.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
I look at stuff and don't go, wow. I go, why?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
like
That's the difference.
I have a really good girlfriend and she's going to remain anonymous. And she sends me pictures when she's backstage at fashion shoots because she will see the inside of a gown that we only see the outside on a runway. And she will send me a picture and it can go one of two ways. Okay, really. It can be like, can you believe this? Look how amazing this is. Like even the inside is as beautiful as the outside. And she's like losing her mind. And I'm looking at these pictures like, holy crap. And then of course it goes the other end, like they slapped that together to send to the photo shoot. Like I hope the real one is like in the studio. So, okay. Why do have so brands have normal sweater that goes up to thousands of dollars because so in this one particular case, we're talking about this kind of material made in this particular way. But do you find that to be the average, the norm, that sweaters priced so high are because of its specialty, or is it more common to see basically the brand markup?
I think there's two levels of difference here. And I always look at like the standard of athletes and stuff like that, where the gap for me, the gap between the $10, $20 sweater compared to the $150 sweater, that gap is in quality and detail and finishing and material is far more significant than the gap between a $150 sweater and a $1,000 sweater. I think that gap is more marketing than it is quality and design and all of those elements. And so if you went into a H&M and found a $30 sweater, turned it inside out, had a look at the label, had a look at the finishes, had a look at the composition and all of that sort of traceability aspect of it, where it was made and who and all of that stuff, and then compared it with a $150 100% wool sweater and turned that inside out and had a look at it, and on the face of it, they might be two red sweaters and that's all, that they look very similar. I think the amount of use you would get out of the $150 one, the more wearable it is, the how long it would last is, its quality would far outweigh the lesser sweater. Whereas if you then compare that $150 sweater to a $1,000 sweater, it's more than likely the brand that you're paying for is the difference in price. There might be a different level of grade of cashmere to it that will definitely improve the quality, but you're paying for something that looks like this more often than not. I got this discounted secondhand because I would never pay recommended retail price for this because of that gap that I'm talking about, really. Brett, anything?
I find it hard to pay retail price too, because I just know from the designer end what things cost to make.
Totally.
But I'm a buttonhole about those things. So that's our clean word on this channel. We're supposed to keep things clean. So buttonhole is my clean word.
Yeah, I think there's loads of things to consider. I think the price never really reflects the cost in any of those aspects. And there's all the invisible things too that you don't see from the sweater. There's the supply chains, there's the factories, there's a bunch of stuff that just isn't reflected. So when you look at a $30 sweater, you feel like that is what you should be paying for a sweater, and you shouldn't. I don't really think it's possible for things that cost that much if they're made in ethical circumstances. There's also taxes and imports and stuff which can inflate prices too. But when you get to like the more expensive end of the industry, there is a lot more to consider. There's very specific fabrics that are less easy to acquire. And in some circumstances, if you're going away from large conglomerates, if you go into smaller brands that have expensive stuff, it's usually because that's what they need to price them at to afford to make them and afford to pay people who are involved in making them too. It's a really nuanced conversation. It would take hours and hours to unravel. But yeah, like Scott said, like it's all right just saying there's a wool sweater and there's a wool sweater. There's so many differences that can be in those, whether it's literally the animal it came from or how it was taken from that animal, to the people who took it, where that was, how it was transported to you, and how quick. There's loads and loads of things to consider.
There's one thing that we kind of missed, and it's like, I hate talking about it as a separate industry, but I've had a bunch of sustainable fashion brands. And I mean, those that are born from the very get-go, they have considered the planet in all of their approaches. And the thing that trips them up more often than not about the price of their item is how much of the item they have to buy to make, like how big the order is. And so like their sample set and all of that sort of stuff, they can't order. If they ordered 100,000 of that item, then they can price it amazingly. But because they're a sustainable fashion brand, they only need 30. And so that's going to cost them way more to buy.
That's so true. That's so true, because anything in any industry that you buy, you get a volume break. But if part of and it should be part of everyone's sustainability sort of, rules is not to overproduce. Also, it's also just like a plain good business decision not to have a bunch of excess inventory sitting around. I always tell my clients, my small business clients, like inventory is just like little bags of money sitting around doing nothing for you except depreciating over time. So you don't want to have too much inventory, period, whether or not you even care about the planet. But then again, if you care about the planet, then you don't want to overmake things that no one is going to buy. So it's like, that's a huge thing. And I had a client last week who wanted to do these specialty fabrics. And she's like, what are the minimums on something like that? I'm like, 1,000 yards. And she's like,
yeah,
how many dresses would be 1,000 yards? I'm like, the kind of dresses you're thinking of, about 800, like 800 dresses. And she's like, And then her baby started crying like it understood or something.
It heard. It definitely
babies
heard.
know.
Like
Babies just know.
I think it's probably because her mom like clenched up so hard when I was like giving her the numbers. It's a thing, where
she had arrhythmia and it set the baby off.
I try to be honest with my clients without being too discouraging. It's like that fine line of like, well, yes, fashion is great, but also
I would say a good platform now that's Nona Source. They're based in London, but they're backed by LVMH, and they've provided a dead stock platform for you to go and buy all these big conglomerates, old fabrics, and you don't have to buy loads and loads of them. They're pretty affordable from what I hear from designers. So Nona Source are kind of tackling that. And I know even during last London Fashion Week, you had Daniel Fletcher, SS Daily, and a bunch of other designers did their whole runway collections out of that dead stock fabric. And if you are a brand or a business or a designer and you want some, send as many bloody emails as you can possibly send to everyone that you know and just ask for some. They might help you. Even like students, I was speaking to a friend, Patrick, whilst he did an internship at Burberry, and when he finished, he literally emailed Christopher Bailey and says, I made this out of some dead stock lying around before I left, and it was I think it was a bunny rabbit teddy bear thing, and can I have some fabric? And he literally just connected him to where all their waste fabric was and says, there. So literally just ask, because the worst thing that can happen is you're in the exact same position you're in right now, where you have nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next question. Do you think this kind of connects to our previous conversation. Do you think sustainably produced clothing will ever be affordable to the masses? Do people buy fast fashion or thrift because it's all they can afford? How can that be achieved, or why can't it? And I'm gonna hold back because I have like
I've got so much.
so
Yeah, when I
many
read this,
opinions,
That
but this
was
is
the
about
most
you.
triggering.
yeah,
That's the
This
most
is about you
triggering question
guys.
I've ever heard.
I always think people can forget that they're not mutually exclusive. So when
Also,
I think,
wait, because
here we
I'm
go.
set off. Fast fashion is not for poor people.
Hmm.
It's not. If only poor people bought fast fashion, the industry would collapse on its arse. Like, it just wouldn't exist. So it's a complete myth that it's made for poor people. They've marketed it as that to make themselves feel better and escape any accountability and responsibility by the damage that they do. Bottom
Exactly
line,
that.
not for poor
Exactly
people.
that. And when we do interviews and podcasts with students that live as parsimonious as possible and very frugal lives because they're at a budget week in, week out, they go, I'm trying to be more sustainable and all this and that. I was like, it's not on you. We're not looking at you to like not consume fast fashion because you can't afford anything else. And yet these are the ones that are like, I'll go to the charity shop, I'll go thrifting, I'll do this and do that. And they're trying their utmost to not buy fast fashion. I always look at the influencers that are selling the fast fashion via affiliate links, selling it as £8 a dress and free delivery, or everything's free, just pay delivery, whilst they're decked out in Cartier up to their elbow. And they're using the money they make from you buying fast fashion and then buy luxury with it. I hate that. It winds me up more than anything. But I think, can fashion ever be sustainable? The first part of that. I think it's more, will we start ever valuing the people that make our clothes is more so the right question. Because on sustainability and fashion, it's what do you really want? What are we actually asking for here? Because one's either exploiting people or planet. And so when will we start looking at the people that make our clothes and stop giving them the equivalent of about 20 minutes pay in the UK for an outfit?
Yeah. All of that. Also,
You hit such a nerve right then. Just
there's another conversation about, and I can't remember which designer said this, and we're slowly navigating towards a place where secondhand, pre-loved, vintage, thrifted charity shops is about to overtake fast fashion in popularity and revenue and all that stuff, right? That's partially because we're in a cost of living crisis, but also partially because we've got environmentalists and people are starting to care, but also because we want clothes that are self-expressive, that tell stories, and that we care about. And then obviously the other end of Gen Z, they literally don't care, and they're literally buying fast fashion at rates literally we haven't seen before.
Yeah. But in the whole, the easiest answer is fashion is not sustainable. Like,
Yeah.
we consume new things. That's not sustainable. We can't
Right.
just buy new stuff forever.
Right. But there's brands that are looking at, if we just started to be sustainable right now, if the whole industry was literally net zero right now, we're still absolutely buttonholed. Right, done. We can't just be sustainable. We have to be regenerative and give back if we're going to make a positive impact. So there's plenty of designers doing really, really good things. We need to look at what we're actually purchasing. We're most parts purchasing social desirability, and for our peers to think that we're cool and to accept us and for us to have some sort of relevance in the industry, which is complete and utter rubbish. Like, nobody cares if you've worn something twice. Nobody cares if you've posted it twice on Instagram. That's what we need to get away from, a big psychology change and behavior change. Then we can start having a better impact on our consumption and why we buy fashion. And then I think because of that, that's why the secondhand pre-loved stuff's all come, because we like, oh, that's a nice jacket. And I love hearing people proudly say it's vintage and I found it in this button crack of nowhere under a shelf, and then they tell me all about it.
my favorite coat is a Giorgio Armani vintage olive drab trench, unlined, beautiful condition. I found in like the middle of Reno. Do you know where Reno is? Okay.
Yeah.
Unless, well, Scott would know because you used to live around here, but like if you're not American, most people do not know where Reno is, but Reno is actually like a little thrift gem capital of like the Western US. And one of my old bosses told me about it. So I drove through, stopped by this menswear vintage shop, and I got it for $60. I got it for $60.
That's
It's the
insane.
best. Okay. And when we meet in person, I'm going to wear it and brag all about it. But like,
We're just gonna be all layered in stuff that we found in like random holes on the internet, or like we're just gonna be out thrifting each other.
I don't actually go shopping that much, but yeah, like I have so many things to say about this, but this is not about me and my opinions today. Okay, just rapid fire. That whole thing about like anybody who does a fast fashion haul, get out of here. There are definitely like extreme cases where I think, yeah, you really need to shop fast fashion and you're one of the very tiny percentage. And I'm thinking about people who are size 30 and just have like so few options that when someone who is a size 30, like they turn to fast fashion because that's like the only way they can find clothes at all. I don't say a word.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
but
like
they still buy it slow. It might be fast fashion, but they buy it slowly.
Yeah, they don't buy 8 pieces at once every other week. Like that's the thing that is so bad about fast fashion is people see these prices and they think, oh, well, I can afford to buy 8 pieces every other week and run through them. There was this, I think, New York Times article recently where they were talking about how many pieces you should have in your wardrobe and how many outfits you really need to have and all this stuff. And the podcasters who had presented the article, they were really mad about these tiny numbers. And then they started talking about, well, what part of your percentage do you actually wear? Like what percentage of your closet do you actually wear? Like I live in long sleeve black t-shirts. So, talking about the whole, like, being seen in something twice, like, this is part of my brand and people fucking love it. Excuse my French. I shouldn't have said that. But you know what? When I don't wear a long sleeve black t-shirt, when I wear a short sleeve black t-shirt, because I live in California and it is occasionally 100 and sweaty degrees, people are like, what are you wearing, Zoe? Like it's a thing. Okay. So you don't need to have like this huge wardrobe, That's
It's
why
so
I like
funny
to
you
have.
said that. I've got a video going live soon for the Save Your Wardrobe app that I've been an ambassador for. And I literally dug up a quote and it was, we wear 20% of our wardrobe 80% of the time. Why do you need all that new stuff?
Why? You don't.
You don't wear it.
And, yeah, I have a lot of things. But, the point, the big point that I need like a 3-hour video to talk about is that, fast fashion and our need to consume fast fashion also really boils down to our shrinking middle class globally and our perception of money and what we can afford and our dealing with money and the lack of it. And just so much of that is wrapped in the psychology of money because of the global economy. And until we are making inroads to have a thriving middle class, the fast fashion problem cannot be resolved. But there's just so much. But anyway.
Yay, capitalism.
Yay. I'm just going to wear these long sleeve black t-shirts till the day I die. Like this, whatever pants I have going on is all weather dependent. But like,
do you know, I find when I read that stat from Drapers that said if an item is worn twice or has been seen on social media, it's considered old. I'm like, if not enough people saw me in this outfit, I'm wearing it tomorrow. I could think the complete opposite. There's no way I'm spending time putting an outfit together to be not seen by enough people. That's just not an option in my case.
Okay, listen, the only time I've really paid attention to how many times you wore an outfit was that one time you had one part of your collar out and one not. And I kept looking to see if you still had your collar like
That's
that
my thing.
All the other pictures.
Do you know, I took it to the next level as well now, because I want people to think about how you can dress up and dress down something super small or super casual. So like wearing a rugby shirt over the top of a shirt and tie, and then a Gucci suit, just to scruffy it up a bit, just throw the rugby collar out or in or whatever. Just look like you care less. And so we did the Casablanca show in Paris as well. And I wore a really cheap sample suit that I bought on sale from King and Tuckfield. It was like never got made. It needed a lot of work. And then I found a brand called Deadwood make leather jackets from other random bits of leather. And it was about 200 quid in sale as well. And they sent a big pack with it. And I thought, right, on the face of it, it's just a suit and a jacket. So I put one lapel over the top of the lapel of the leather jacket and kept one in. Absolutely flew. Everyone was asking me about it. I was like, is this like, do these go together? Was it made to be like that? And I was like, no, I just like ran out of ideas. And so just developed the rugby shirt collar out a little bit more and just did it with a suit.
I was going to say, Zoe, this is going to trigger you.
Necessity is the mother of invention. It's just, it just proves itself to be true all the time. It's like, I ran out of ideas, so I tried this.
Yeah, literally that.
Even on the Vogue magazine post, Scott's got one half of his cardigan poking out of his jacket. 42 million people. Sorry, Zoe, it's a thing now.
I love that they posted a picture of us.
It's not that I didn't like it. I just wanted to know if he did it on purpose.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It was a genuine question. It was a genuine question. I'm like, honey, did
everything.
It was like kind of like, you know, big sister vibes. Like, sweetie, did you need to do that?
Oh, mate,
did you brush your teeth this morning? Your collar sticking out.
In pity. Honestly, I wore a suit with a jumper around my waist and a shirt and tie. Hanan all day, like, sweetie, this jumper is not it. This sweater, like, why have you got this around your waist? You need to take it off. I'm like, everything I do is on purpose. Leave me alone. He was like following me around all day trying to make me take it off.
I mean, no, I figured the styling choices were on purpose. It was just that like askew collar. I mean, I like it. It's cool. But like, I know there are people out there who think the same way. Like
100%.
You know, when the old lady comes up to you and you got a little schmutz on your face, like, Mom, that's a fake beauty mark on purpose. I have this one mole. You can't see because the camera and everything. I have this one mole on my face. It's like a slightly larger freckle. And do you know how many like Korean grandmas have tried to wipe it off my face?
Oh,
like
gold.
You think a food fleck went all the way up here? Like,
yeah.
Who's eating like
out
that?
Of a trough.
I kind of felt like that eating breakfast this morning. I'm like, I have to put my eyebrows on.
Just hands in cereal.
Okay. Okay. All right. So on a more less triggering note, what factors should be taken into consideration when developing a sustainable line? What do you think are like the three most important? We can't talk about everything, but let's talk about what you think are the three most important to start with. Because especially with a small brand with limited resources, they can't tackle everything.
Right.
If you prioritize everything, then nothing is a priority.
The first thing I would always say is, does the world need this brand or this line? Does the world need this? Or does something else exist? Or am I just adding noise to everything, right? I think the second one is, if I'm creating a line, say you already have a brand and you're creating an additional line that's more sustainable, is it replacing something that's bad? Because a lot of brands like to create more things without addressing the overlying factor, which is we make too much stuff already. Or maybe you can do something that we already make better and just swap them out. That's the thing. I think that's the place that really, really frustrates me. Oh, we've made a secondhand marketplace. You need that because you make too much stuff. Just stop making so much stuff and it'd be fine. Because otherwise you're just greenwashing. And the same with lines. Like, rather make, oh, here's our new sustainability line. Okay, well, replace something that you already do that's not as good. That's I think
this is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing that flew on my TikTok with the Kourtney Kardashian Boohoo sustainability ambassador.
Oh my God, that was so infuriating. I don't know how you stayed so calm.
The way she replied to me as well, like she was, sweetie, I've spoke to loads of experts. I know what I'm doing here.
So much condescension.
Really and I was like, you know what? If you're going to say something, I'm going to use you for clout. So here it is. But the way that the opposite of what you just said is Boohoo have the resource to address as many of those things as they want. And the first thing they did was a new collection is the answer, not let's get rid of some stuff and get Kourtney in to make something that's better. But I think probably if you took Brett's 1 and 2, my third would be the implementation of that across the brand. Let's not just do one thing because it's cute now. Let's do something that's going to have lasting effect on a company or a brand and all of those sorts of things. Fundamentally, I think the obvious answers are, transparency and supply chains and looking after the people that make it. I think that how I got into sustainable fashion was I went down the rabbit hole of so many different things, and they always usually ended with people, well, the exploitation of people or water. And those things were just like really odd to me, that we, in order to make this thing successful and profitable and go viral and all of these things, we need to either exploit planet or people. But yeah, I think having lasting effect is what people should consider. Don't just make something once that's great. Use your learnings from making that one thing once and try and distill that across lots of other things.
Yeah, I always tell people what you pay for people to do a certain task for you always seems so expensive until you want to charge someone for that exact same task. And all of a sudden you're like, you want me to do how much work for this little pay? Absolutely not. And you're like, well, you just asked so-and-so via this article of clothing to do this much work. I have so many designers, babies. I love you guys. You know that you are my heart, but there are too many of you who are like, I don't want to learn how to sew, and then don't want to pay anyone a good rate to sew for you. And that kind of thinking, like, you think people have this idea that sewers are like unskilled labor. Have you sat in an industrial sewing machine? Have you almost run your finger over because you couldn't control the pedal? Okay.
Fashion,
yeah,
two things. 100%. And we went to we were very, very lucky that we went on a little press day to Scotland to the knitwear factory called Barry, and they are the suppliers.
They do all the Chanel stuff.
They do all the Chanel stuff. They do Tom Brown. They do some Hermes stuff.
Hermes, Celine, yeah.
So, and
Most
when you look
though.
into the factory and you think, I still sometimes take my grandma's stuff to like mend or shorten and alter. And I think of the skill that goes on that my nan does in her kitchen on a little sewing machine. And then you see the scale and quality and how meticulous these people are and how highly skilled workers they are. And then you think, well, I'm not really prepared to pay 15 quid for this to get altered or, all of that sort of stuff. That's why I really liked lockdown and how we connected. During that period, people saw the Jonathan Anderson blueprint that was released for that Harry Styles sweater that was the patchwork cardigan. And so I think that pushed people to go, oh, I can have a go at that. I've got all the time. I'm at home. I can buy a few yarns and just have a go at it. And then Tom Daley also, the British Olympic diver, also started a new page that was like Tom Daley Knits. I can't remember what it's called. And I think things like that make people realize just how skilled these people are. And so paying them what they are asking is actually really okay.
I even do it. It's even the same with the other creatives in the industry. I do it often with photographers and videographers when I need a project to shoot in. And I'm like, I cannot press a button on a camera to save my life. I'm a complete degenerate with it. And so when I'll ask a photographer to come in, I'll literally say, what do you think is fair for this work? And I know it's from their experience. They'll be like, oh, I'll do this afternoon for 150 quid. And I'm like, let me give you 250, because I know even after, it might only be 2 or 3 hours, but after, you're going to have to go home and edit so that it looks good, and then make sure that you're happy with the edit, then send it to me, and I might not be happy, and send it back, you do even more. And I'm like,
but they're so used to doing favors.
They're used to being exploited with it. They're used to it, and they're used to being devalued by the rest of the industry. And I'm like, I can't do that. It's not like mine would be rubbish. I simply cannot do that. And I don't even own a camera to do that. So I'm not just paying you for your time today. I'm paying you for the camera that was thousands of pounds that you had to buy, and the years of experience that you were spent learning your craft. And people just devalue so many people in the industry. That makes us think it's fine to pay people peanuts.
Yeah, I would say that one of my more controversial opinions about pricing is that all clothing, the lowest pricing should start at a contemporary price point. If we actually paid people livable wages and that goes up the entire supply chain, not necessarily just the people who do the patterns and cutting and sewing, that our clothing should be at minimum contemporary pricing, which is like it's contemporary, modern, and then designer, right? And then you get to luxury and couture. And it should be at minimum contemporary. I'm sorry, take away moderate. I said that wrong. So it's contemporary, designer, and luxury. And that should, the contemporary price point should be the minimum that we're paying. If we think about what people were paying and how much money they spent per garment in the 1910s and how it relates now, and you think labor laws were safe and good back then, even like, no. But even then, we were paying people better and people were paying more for their wares than we are relative to inflation now. So these $30 garments, these t-shirts that are cheaper than my lunch is absolutely absurd. Anyway, what were we talking about? Okay.
Good question.
Is sustainability used to make rich people feel good about their consumption habits?
Yes.
Oh man, that's triggered me to a thing I seen on, I think it was Laura Jean's Twitter account, where it was like sustainability is the new luxury or something like along those lines. I was like,
Just stop buying stuff.
stop.
I just don't see sustainable fashion. People think of it as so much more expensive than the rest of it, but in connection to what I said before, I just think that sustainable fashion is closer to the target we should be reaching for to produce fairly. And just stop buying less stuff. You know, there's this new trend on TikTok now, which I find hilarious. It's called Deinfluencing. If you haven't seen it, people are literally saying, you know, this is my de-influencing video. Okay. And they talk about, and what they do on these de-influencing TikToks. Oh my God, I can't even. They talk about all the things that they hate and that you should not buy. Okay.
Oh, I love that.
And sometimes people do it right. Like, this is overrated. This is overrated. This is overrated. This doesn't work. You know, a lot of beauty TikTokers do this. A lot of fashion girlies do this. But then there are some who are like, don't buy this, buy this. And I'm like, that's not helping.
Just influencing. Do you remember the video I did about 18 months ago with the Harry Styles pleasing nail varnish?
I do, but just a lot of the comments were just really sexist and terrible. And
It's the internet. But I was like, I've spent $80 on this. Don't buy it. I was adamant on, like, I've bit the bullet here. Please don't waste your money on it too. But it's funny that the other ones I like are like, here's a bunch of rich people furniture you all need to stop buying. And there's literally like the Mario Bellini, there's Pierre Jeanneret, like the Toga Limousette by Michel Ducroix, and they go through like what every rich person's house looks like. It's so funny.
I've seen that one. It is hilarious. Hilarious. Oh my God.
I like the de-influencing trend. But my favorite is, I think when there's a bunch of like, influencers have been doing this a long time, and usually they're YouTube original people that have, you know, got a very well curated wardrobe of very luxury items, and they'll throw in the one thing that is sustainable, or, you know, here's my coat, I've had it 10 years. And I was like, yeah, I would flipping hope so. It cost you $2,000. Like, oh my God, it's lasted me 10 years. Like, Jesus Christ, it better still be there in another 10 years, else you've wasted your money. But I think a good way for like normal consumers to look at things is cost per wear. Just really
wear, absolutely.
Just really wear the stuff out of your clothes and make it last as long as possible. Try not to be swayed by influencers that are trying to sell you stuff because they have an ulterior motive. And also, my pet hate is the start of the videos that influencers do, where it's like, I've had to get up early today because the people are coming to fit my walk-in wardrobe. So here's a get ready with me. Turn off immediately. They've just said their life has been hindered because someone is coming to fit their walk-in wardrobe. And so they've had to get up early. I turn off immediately. Just unfollow these people. Just unfollow them entirely.
This relates back to something you said right at the start of the video, Zoe, about whether you create content for your audience or, you know, like because you get audience recommendations, so you want to cater to them, or whether you create for yourself. But the difference with especially your content is you see your audience as a community, which is how it should be, rather than a bunch of people who get a platform like on that stupid show I was on, and they immediately see all their followers as customers and they just want to make money from them. And that's where you say, oh my God, what can I create next? That means I can sell stuff to all my audience that's going to make me money. Whereas you're like, what do my audience want to talk about? What can we converse in? What can us as a community gain from like discussing these things, or what can we all learn together? That's the difference. So that's where I'm like, I don't really mind it when people are like, okay, what do you want me to talk about so we can learn together, rather than say, oh, what you're interested in so I can sell you stuff.
Yeah. When I found out about this whole de-influencing thing, I was like ranting that I'm the original de-influencer because I don't talk about brands ever. Like the only time I talk about brands is, my favorite pen. Scott's
Your pens.
This is my pen.
You were trying to sell me this on Clubhouse like 3 years ago.
Okay, see, because this is the best pen. And, like I write by hand almost everything. Okay. And this is the best pen that exists, the best ballpoint pen. I buy them in bulk. You can buy them at any office supply store in the US. I don't know. This is just Bic. Who hasn't heard of Bic? Okay. This is the best pen. This is the only influencing I try to do. Okay. Bic. I don't even need a lot of your brand dollars. If you could just keep me in a lifetime supply of these pens, that'd be great. If they could come in black, even better, because you know me. But like,
that was going to be my point. If this is a blue pen, I was going to leave. If this is an only blue, what am I? I'm going to write in Comic Sans now as well. What is this, a comic sketch?
No, the ink is black. I just wanted the barrel to be black.
The barrel. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't have a blue barrel
black.
and a black ink. That is just no.
Is it gray?
That would drive me crazy.
The ink is black. Okay.
Okay.
I write everything in this damn journal. See the live stream down here. Okay. But this is the best. Okay. That's the only influencing I do. Everything else, I just focus on technique and how you live your life and how you develop, like the how of everything and not what. And that's why I don't get like free bags at Christmas, because I don't serve the brands. I don't serve the brands. Honestly, I'm kind of in the market for a really nice handbag right now, but there are so many brands I hate. I just don't want to give them my money. So it's all a matter of like this lazy Susan of who do I hate the least right now? Like, anyway.
That's like politics. Who do I hate the least?
It's like the next time a big brand hires an angry looking white guy to be their creative director, they have to be angry looking. Okay. Have you noticed that? Okay.
So always
the two of you are never going to get anywhere in life because you two look too pleasant to be around. Okay. You just don't look angry enough. Brett, I think you should just start clenching your jaw more, go back to, that whole thing. Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh, people are saying that they're talking about my book recs. Yeah, I do recommend books because that's really more about process and whether books are written well and stuff. But I do use different color pens in daily journaling from one day or entry to the next. Yeah, that can be fun. Like, I know journaling is a huge trend. My sister does it. Like a lot of my teacher friends do it. But yeah, I'm an all black girl. I don't know if anybody noticed. Yeah. Anyway, last question. Okay. I recently came across a social media post which read, fashion and sustainability are inherently incompatible. To a certain extent, it is factual, but I also believe that emerging fashion brand startups are looking into every aspect of sustainability. I would like to get some clarity on the same.
Right. There's someone online who sends me this flipping Charlie Brooker quote all the time. He's the guy that invented the Netflix show. Is it Black Mirror or something? Him, that guy. And there's like a really long passage he did in the newspaper about how sustainable fashion is complete oxymoron. The whole industry basically just needs to be wiped. It has no net positive impact on the planet, blah, 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 blah. And it's brutal about fashion industry, right? And if we start to take away everything that brings us joy and fulfillment and things that bring our life enrichment, we can basically, on his logic, take away the music industry, the film industry, the art industry, and fashion and everything else. And we can live in this weird dystopian, horrible, grey Hunger Games kind of world.
It's just like
What
eating,
is your
breathing,
solution?
drinking.
Charlie Brooker's
bare
solution
minima.
is to, it's just a complete redundant thing. We're not telling people that we need to cancel absolutely everything. That's not the thing. Because, and it felt weird coming from a creative who's made television programs. Do we need televisions? Did we always have them? No. All right, well, delete televisions. Okay, and delete the entire film and music and television industry. There.
We've had
Now
clothes longer than TV.
Right, now you haven't got a job, you idiot. On your logic. Pudding, absolute pudding.
I think Brett's triggered by this because he pops up a lot.
I'm dying to do a show that
Breakfast
he's on at some point. I'm dying.
I think the other part of the
That's why you
question
don't see me on breakfast news shows, by the way.
Yeah, you do get asked for a lot of interviews that never air. The other part of it is, I think fashion has kind of got away with not having to be sustainable for a long time. And it's still kind of seen as this fun, creative industry that is all about expression, but only at COP26. So we've had 26 United Nations Conference of the Parties, and 26 fashion was spoken about, even though everyone in the room is wearing clothes. And so I think there's that area of sustainability, climate change, climate catastrophe, and then fashion is kind of given its own little part of the world that's kind of separate. And I think that's happened for a long time. But if you go further back, fashion was pretty well done originally. It was all made by hand. It was part of people's culture and identity as well, which is a lot that people miss now when they think of fashion today, and like the heritage and the value that it has to a lot of cultures and subcultures. I just think there's parts of the sustainability spectrum when it comes to fashion that people need to pick where they sit and pick parts that are fundamental to why they wear certain things. And so when people think like, how can I be more sustainable? How can I look at fashion and do things more responsibly? They're not going to hit all of those things straight away. And
I think
a lot of people, it's a journey.
Yeah. I think it's also really easy to try and tear down the runway stuff and the fashion week seasons. It's the thing in that Charlie Brooker quote, he was the same, like, why do we need people to fly around the world 4 times a year to see these runway collections, blah, blah, blah. That's not the area of the industry we actually need to focus on. It's the other end of the industry that is the most damaging. And what obviously it's always interesting seeing that people from the outside are the ones that are attacking it, when really, if they'd have ever been to a fashion show or spoke to a designer and listened to the stories that are told, the communities that they're trying to empower. If you look at the last Casablanca show, the designer, but rather than people, this one got me. So the designer even went, he was telling a story about Syrian refugees and peace and togetherness. He gave Syrian refugees all jobs in the atelier and included them in the whole production to help tell the story together, empowered them, moved them, gave them jobs, even flew in a jet, did all this stuff. The story was incredible, but not a lot of it was told in press notes. And so people were very attacking of it. But you don't know stories like that unless you're on the inside of the industry. The same as you wouldn't know a whole runway collection was made of dead stock fabrics that was then recycled into something else, then eventually made into a Christmas tree, unless you're on the inside of the industry. And you don't know about any of these things if the press and the editors and the salespeople and everyone who goes to the fashion shows don't talk about it. But people like to attack that aspect of the industry because it's quite front facing and has a lot of exposure, when in realistic terms, it's a very small percentage of what is bad about the industry.
I think it's a cheap
and the
shot.
good things filter down too. Yeah. Look at the last Marine Serre collection.
super easy to make fun of fashion because there's always going to be a ready audience for of people who love to make fun of fashion. And really anything that has to do with appearance, people eschew that as unimportant because they only see it surface level. And so it's easy. So they do it and they
literally if you look at the last Marine Serre collection that she just showed in Paris, the story that she tells in that collection is unbelievable about waste, about denim, about 3 different aspects of the industry. It's that in itself is like a documentary. If you go read the notes and look through the collection and listen to her interview, it's the same as watching a documentary on waste and clothing. And actually, it's funny you said that. One of my favorite quotes about fashion is, I think it's Andy Warhol, and he said, "Fashion is deeply superficial." And it's so perfect.
I love, one of the reasons I love fashion is you can see it from like literally any level, just surface level. There's just so many pretty things to look at, period. And you can just enjoy it on that level, but you can also go at it in so many ways. You can become a fashion geek like me and just really deep dive on process. You can enjoy kind of the business machinations of the whole cycle. Like there's so many angles in which to look at this extremely multifaceted and interesting industry that to be that dismissive of like, just get rid of everything is unintelligent. That's the nicest word I can say for it. Unintelligent.
That's why you get asked to do interviews and I don't.
There have been a couple times, and honestly, this is why I prefer email interviews where they ask me the questions and I'm like, let me prepare a little. When I'm feeling brave, like I'll be like, yeah, just call me. We'll just go without even prep. All right, let's do it. But yeah.
You bash the words out and then you're like, right, let me read this in an hour before I send it.
Oh, I sleep on it. Let me my backspace key is going to get worn out. I'm going to need a new keyboard. They ask me why I need a new keyboard. I will say my backspace and my caps lock are broken.
Just constantly shouting and deleting. Brilliant.
When I was teaching at university, it was much easier to release my anger because I would often start the class with my latest rant of what I hate about fashion. And, they're paying to listen to me. So they just have to sit there and wait for me to finish. And I don't allow recording devices in my class. Like they were allowed to take pictures of all my demos, but they weren't allowed to video anything. So if they wanted to take a picture of me doing this in front of class, that's fine. But I quit university in 2017. So I just don't have a release valve for all the angry things that I have to say about fashion, which is why I have a rant of the day on my podcast. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing, but now is the time. Okay, we're so over time. You're so generous with your time. Thank you guys. Now is the time to start on our American British vocabulary lesson. And this was all inspired because one day Brett had posted a picture of himself from a photo shoot he did. And I had said something along the lines of, I really want to see you in like an American mobster, like 1940s style photo shoot where you're wearing like a white tank and suspenders. And we got things a little lost in translation because...
You mean a vest and braces?
Because none of those things mean anything to me.
And I was, and I'm sending this via DM. And yeah, so suspenders are not suspenders, garter belt. Oh, so I was talking about a garter. He was thinking of a garter belt. I was thinking about suspenders, American suspenders. It was a whole thing. And I was like, how are we both speaking English right now? But honestly, in the chat, raise your hand if you think Brett would look amazing in an old school Chicago mobster like photo shoot with like a high-waisted trouser. Always say, see, that's the one thing I remember when I did my summer semester at St. Martin's. I got the whole pants and trousers thing corrected immediately by the guy who cooked for our dorm. He cooked breakfast for our dorm. And one day I was down there getting breakfast and he's like, oh, I really like your trousers. I'm like, my pants? And he's like, no, your trousers. And I was like, what? I was 20. I don't know. But we got that clarified real quick. Oh, yeah, that was super fun. Anyway.
I love that when you sent this question, immediately our email started going back and forth about stuff.
How about this and this and this?
You mean this?
And then you're like, this, but it's pronounced like this.
Yeah. I couldn't do that one, especially because it's where we're from as well. That item is where we're from.
I didn't get a picture of it. Should I get one now?
Yeah, try and find it.
Okay.
It's really, I wear it quite a lot as well, actually.
Okay, so I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to I have to move things around because I want to share the screen with everyone so people can see what the heck it is we're talking about. Okay. Wait, this one. And I just want to make sure that people on YouTube share that. And hopefully there's like a little bit of a time delay, but hopefully everything will show up on the YouTube. We're still laughing about some dumb thing I said on the YouTube live stream. This lag is really tripping me up. Okay. So the reason why I picked this picture, this is a bathing suit. This is what Americans call a bathing suit. And someone had told me that British people call bathing suits swimming costumes. And I always thought that that was a super old-timey word. But is this a word that you still use?
I use
swimsuit, or yeah, I think
for a similar category, I think they're all swimsuits, and then you have like one piece and bikinis. So a one piece obviously is self-explanatory. So one piece, and then a bikini is.
Yeah, I don't think Brits would ever use bathing suit.
They would never use bathing suit.
You would swim in this, no? Is this not a swim thing?
Hey, man, don't attack me. Okay, first of all, I wasn't even born in this country. I didn't make these words up, all right? Second of all, I'm just using words that other Americans use, all right? So they call it a bathing suit.
It's too cold to bathe anywhere in the UK.
Yeah, that's true.
We would never bathe in the sun.
And then, yeah, but swimming costume just seems like a very old-timey word.
Swimming costume is a little formal. We'd just say swimsuit, I reckon. Okay.
I mean, Americans use swimsuit as well.
Bathing suit, swimsuit. I rarely hear bathing suit.
Do you know, to guys,
but I think that it's about sunbathing and not in water bathing, and people do that as much as they actually swim in their swimsuits. Just throwing that out there. That was a very diplomatic answer. I know. Okay. This is a bathrobe, and this is actually for baths. Nobody's swimming in these.
Is this not a dressing gown?
So you would call this a dressing gown?
Or a robe. Yeah.
Okay. Dressing gown.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation, Scott, on email. So in America, this is a button-down shirt because it's got the little buttons on the collar, putting it down, and it automatically lends a more casual look. And this is a much more casual setting shirt than the button up, which has no buttons on the collar. If you can see my big mouse right there. So what do you call a button down?
An Oxford.
The thing is though, Oxford usually refers to the fabric rather than that. I think we're just used to seeing Oxford shirts with the button.
No, all Oxfords have button down collars.
Yeah.
But also people now are bringing back a preppier style where they're wearing a tie and a button down collar.
See, I would feel like I'm being choked in that situation.
Also that, yeah.
I already don't like buttoning the top.
It's a very enjoyable experience, sorry.
Scott?
But why is this a button up? What's the up in
because you're buttoning it up but there's
No,
no
you
button
button it
up.
down.
Would you-
Who buttons up?
literally no one that I
Start
know.
at the bottom and go up.
That was the explanation given to me. But yeah, I don't either. I very rarely wear a shirt with buttons down the front, but when I do, it's always bust first to make sure it closes at the bust.
For sure.
But
But for
Yeah,
literally-
that's the first button you do up there.
Mid-
And
Also,
then-
how
and
tight are his
then-
pants?
you go down and then you're like, okay, how much cleavage am I showing today? And then you
Every day.
figure out the rest of the buttons up here.
yeah. But for the shirts, I think this must stem from like British Savile Row sort of stuff. A shirt is a shirt. We just call shirts in its like umbrella term, but we would always call the shirt after its collar. So it would be like a cutaway or a point. And so that's why I think this would never be called a button up. Never in England. Because one, no one goes up unless you're a psycho. But also it doesn't distinguish what the shirt is.
And shirt does?
Yeah, because it's like it's in the category of shirts, but is it a cutaway or a, you know, like that's the difference for me. Like an extreme point collar or a revere collar.
Okay. This is a cardigan.
This is a cardi.
Now, is that just like your cute way of saying it, or does everyone call them a cardi?
Oh no, it's very well used, cardi.
Okay.
Big fan of the cardi.
I was actually, I thought you would wear your big red sweater today, your patchwork sweater.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's at the place where none of us are.
None of us are at home, yeah.
You didn't want to stand out too much. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
wearing my big sparkle hat today because I want us all like blend in together.
The amount of times I really wanted to wear that this fashion week, I just can't take it or pack it or wear it anywhere. It's so impractical to move. So it just stays on a chair in my house. But I really wanted to wear a suit and a cardigan.
That's the thing that's like one of the few things I don't like about travel is like I don't get to take some of my favorite fashion pieces because I haven't taken my
It's so
Armani
big and
trench anywhere
heavy.
yet because it's like so big.
Yeah.
But these are cargo pants. So any kind of
Yeah.
casual pant with like 100 pockets.
It's just
These are
horrible,
probably
aren't
my least favorite fashion item.
they? No, I know another one that's really rubbed me up the wrong way recently. But yeah, cargos.
They're
Um,
cargos. Okay.
Yeah, it's all military inspired, aren't they?
I thought I would associate them more with like
So,
workwear.
I
Like,
see them
most-
more like utilitarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think most of menswear comes from military uniform, I think.
yeah, probably.
Oh,
Especially
in
the
the
colour.
comments, they're saying in Canada that is called a dress shirt. I've heard it called a dress shirt as well.
Yeah.
I think a dress shirt is more formal than that. A dress shirt has hidden
Cufflinks.
buttons under the flap
Yeah.
and cufflinks rather than buttons.
Yeah, these are button cuffs.
I don't know if in America having cufflinks is like it's a style preference and not a formality level.
Oh no, for here I think it's definitely
The top of the
like-
formal list is a
Yeah.
cufflink shirt. Yeah.
I didn't include a tuxedo, but do you guys call it a tuxedo?
Yeah.
Okay. You know when you're so convinced you know a bunch of stuff, and then when you have to like actually talk to some like when you speak a language and you're sure you know enough of it, but
Oh.
then when you have to speak the language to someone else, you're like, "なんですか?"
I literally saw it on TikTok yesterday, and the guy's gone English verbs, and it's like you dance, I dance, he dances. He was like, "How much is this guy dancing? Like 600 people dance, but he dances. Why? How?"
Listen, I was a
like, "Oh my
private English
God,
tutor
English
for
makes no sense.
I was a private English tutor for a long time as a kid. Typical immigrant experience, like teaching young Korean kids English when they first immigrate to the States. And yeah, like I'm like, I can't explain English to you. I can teach you English, but I'm not going to explain to you how cough and though and through and then bow all have the
Tough.
same vowel like letters, but are pronounced all different. Okay. So this is where this all started. This is a garter belt, the lacy part with the straps down here that attach to stockings. That's called a garter belt here.
How is it a belt? It doesn't do up.
It doesn't.
Well, no, there's the belt part. It goes, some of them are higher. Some of them are at actual waist. I tried to find the most rated G picture where, you know, you weren't seeing a lot of coochie, you know, things like that. Okay. But a lot of them are high up to the waist. And it's a belt with these
Suspenders.
that attach so that your thigh highs stay up. And these are from the old days where, you know, elastic and stretch fabrics and those kinds of things were not a thing. So you had silk stockings that needed to be held up somehow. Okay. It's not the underwear part, which I think we all call them different. These are panties, underwear.
Knickers.
That's like lingerie for us. If there's any like frill and lace and anything that's a bit nice,
It's just
it's
in the lingerie world.
And then if it was just the knickers underneath, there'd be knickers or even pants.
But do you have a word for garter belt?
It must just be the same.
Oh,
It must be garter belt. But
I'm not
everyone
about to go and
listen
search
goes
that.
lingerie. That's all, especially stupid guys. Oh yeah, the lingerie thing. Yeah, cool.
Hey, now I know when
No,
was the
that's
last
a
time
really good
or one
person
of
for
you
this
had a
sort of stuff,
girlfriend.
Richard.
Okay.
Wait, the other equivalent for this are, have you got suspenders further down? As in like braces that go for shirts? No.
Wait, no, I have them.
You do? Yes, these. And the one above. Right. So pet
I actually
fashion,
really like these.
I don't mind these. I hate them when they look like this and have a belt. Where are these pants going?
Oh,
Where?
one
Why?
or the other.
No, it's so stupid and
Hurts me.
redundant.
And I see so
One or
many
the other.
men's wear fashion influencers with 1 million followers, and it's the really moody lighting where they're looking down the street and then they bang at the camera and they're wearing braces and a belt. I was like, bro, get trousers that fit you. Like, just stop.
And a belt that fits you, because clearly that's not working.
The belt's not working, so you've added something else. Just get a new belt. In fact, just throw the whole thing away because it's all too tight. That's usually the answer.
Yeah, so these are suspenders.
These are braces.
They're
These are braces.
suspenders. And this is what these are the things that I wanted Brett to wear in this mobster photo shoot with a tank.
A vest.
A vest.
Which, okay, so we don't call them anymore, but the common American vernacular used to be wife beater, and now we know why we don't call them that anymore. So we call them tanks now.
Why?
What's the tank part? I don't understand the tank.
I don't either.
Tanks have...
When I was Googling around for pictures and I first put in tank. And of course I get, the military vehicles.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, not that. So I put tank top, which this is, but men don't call them tank tops because it sounds girly. You know how men don't like to be girly.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
That's
To be fair,
great.
right? So
you guys call this a vest.
This is a vest.
But women call these tank tops. Women call them tank tops.
See, that's why I had the woman, because I was wondering if it's also a vest for women. But you say women call them tank tops in the UK.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then what is that?
Right on the...
Which is an actual vest.
That's a waistcoat.
Oh, okay. See, hold on. And there's so many vests. I also pulled this picture.
Yeah, but none of them have a massive gun and wheels.
That's a gilet.
That's a gilet.
That's a gilet.
None of these vests, though. None of these vests are in the army, so therefore we're correct.
Okay.
Wait, but can we?
What does that have to?
On the front of it.
Wait, Brett, is this not a gilet?
That's a gilet, yeah, or a body warmer.
Okay, how do you spell gilet?
It's French for vest.
Gilt. Oh my god, it is, isn't it? Oh shit. It's still definitely a gilet.
This is a vest in America. We would call it a puffer vest to be more specific. I've never heard the term gilet, and I feel like I've heard a lot of things.
Gilet,
calling this a puffer vest with the rainbow thing feels slightly homophobic, so I think I would go with. I did call. I couldn't remember the word gilet.
Took the nick out of him.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the word gilet for so long, and I was like, the puffed vest thingy, and I got
But it's,
hammered
see,
for it.
look how accurate that is. The puffed vest thingy to explain your word. This is a puffer vest.
That's
Look at the
so
comments.
right.
He says, somebody said, a lot of old guys use suspenders and belts. That means a lack of confidence. And I think they're talking about a confidence in their clothing and not a confidence in themselves. Someone said, my husband does that because he's rotund. It's
That's my
like double
favorite comment.
duty, really, because like there's when you have a big stomach, you see guys, they do one of two things. They wear the belt, the way their waistband at the stomach, or they wear it like hitched under. So if you're wearing a belt, you might think it'll fall down because men typically don't have hips or like very wide hips to hold up all the stuff. And if you're a guy who carries like keys and wallet and everything, I don't know.
Possibly, but also in a fashion sense, because I think I read braces are more for fashion and suspenders more for like actually holding your trousers up. The vertical lines, exactly, like a bridge. The vertical lines might help with accentuating a slimmer silhouette.
I mean, I like to dress slimmer, but like I don't like the way suspenders like smash my boobs down, and it just is not a great look for me. It's not super slimming on my figure because I'm a little top heavy, but you can't really tell because I always have my hair in front of my tits, but whatever. Anyway, back to vocabulary. Okay, so we got the garter belt. This is a Henley, any kind of knit pullover shirt, long or short sleeves with like a short button placket. It doesn't go all the way down. This is a Henley.
It probably is a Henley.
This is a granddad collar. This is a granddad collar.
Yeah, I think
shirt.
I don't know if it is though, because it's not a shirt. It's like a polo with a granddad collar.
This is Banana Republic, isn't it? I think this is a
don't
Banana
know.
Republic thing.
We don't
I
do
would call
brand
it
shout-outs
like
on
a
here.
collarless shirt for me is a granddad collar, whether that's like a sweatshirt, like a jumper, or a
Okay, is that
t-shirt.
something you call it that, or what the common vernacular is?
Well, they're called granddad collars.
Yeah.
Although I will say that Henley, I've learned, is not a word that every American knows. So if you're an American and you call this something else, let me know in the comments, because I mean, I've always known it as a Henley. I grew up in Eddie Bauer country, like Patagonia, Eddie Bauer, Columbia, the North Face. Those were the brands that were the it brands in my high school in Alaska. And so we were all very familiar with Henleys, thicker, like waffle texture Henleys, like all these sorts of things. So, I mean, some people think of it as like another undershirt under sweaters.
Maybe that's why it's called a Henley. I always think Henley regatta people wear these that are striped.
That's a polo.
This is a polo.
Definitely
this
polo.
is the short button placket, but with a collar. Henleys don't have a collar of any sort. And this is a polo.
We can agree.
That's a polo? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you are going to hate me in a second. In the US, this is a jumper.
Which bit?
The
over the wall?
Overalls looking thing.
That's a dungaree, no?
I think that's overalls or a dungaree.
Or a boiler suit. I don't know.
What's a romper?
I felt like a boiler suit was like the whole like over the coveralls with sleeves and everything.
This is
these
like
are dungarees. Yeah.
But they're not overalls over here, because overalls, we tend to see them as the very classic with the buckles, the bib pocket,
I got one. I feel like I want to call this a dungaree, but I don't know if it is, because dungarees have like the square patch and then just two. I don't know. This is a very unique thing you found. But you would just call that what?
This is a jumper. And if it was short, it would be a romper.
Why is it a jumper?
You have to jump to get into it.
Stop asking me the history of words.
I need some form of logic.
Well, write it down and look it up and get back to me with your homework assignment the next day, Dr. Brett. Okay, so let's... I mean, you must be very good at research by now. All right. This is a
Jumper.
sweater.
It's a
Jumper.
This is that Laura Piana sweater I was talking about.
It's a jumper with, is it a roll neck or a mock
It's a roll
neck?
neck.
I think it's
That's a roll neck.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
we'll get to that, but I just want you to know that this is a 5-figure sweater.
And I would want to fit 5 figures in it if I'm
Does she
paying
have
that much
pants
for
on?
it.
Okay, so the
Why is a
sweater is a
reindeer eating a
jumper,
crab?
right? I'm sorry, what did you say?
Why is is an alpaca eating a crab? The heck is that?
I
Is
have
that the
no
sun?
idea. I have no idea.
Why has it got 5 legs?
I think Laura Piana does a better job when it's just a materials vendor.
I agree.
Their
I
cashmere,
strongly
their
agree.
cashmere is so nice.
It is.
Like when Laura Piana like sample comes in, I'm like, oh, let me go look. I'm gonna QC it real quick and just grope it for a while. Okay, so that's a jumper. And and this is a sweatshirt, not a sweater.
Also a jumper.
Also a jumper. But how would you ever differentiate? You wouldn't?
They're the same thing.
They're not the same thing. This
It's
is
the
a more
same thing.
athletic thing, and the materials are often more athletic materials, whether sweaters are made from knits that have like visible stitches.
They're both jumpers.
Okay, fine. What about these? These are sweatpants.
These are joggers.
Joggers.
They're joggers. I've heard that before. But what about these? These are track
Trackies.
pants. Trackies?
Trackies.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
trackies.
the whole suit is?
Tracksuit.
Tracksuit.
Okay, this is a tracksuit for us too. Okay,
Nice.
Cool.
back to the sweater. This is a turtleneck.
No,
And this
it's
is this is a mock turtleneck, aka
that.
the job special.
Right. So this is a turtleneck.
Wait,
The
wait,
one above
what?
it is a roll neck.
I mean, it's a mock neck because
This-
it starts a bit lower, but
But it
yeah,
rolls
mock neck.
over. You can't have a turtleneck
roll.
if it rolls over. This folds back down on itself. That's a roll neck. If it just goes up
Well,
and stops,
okay.
that's a turtleneck.
There are a lot
the
of
other one's a
people
mock
who
neck, so it
buy
doesn't come up
something
high
like
enough.
this, and then they just scrunch it. They don't fold it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Still a roll neck though, because there's far too much fabric.
So, are you saying that the wrinkles in a turtleneck look like fat rolls? It's like,
No, it makes you look like an amphibian, but it's fine.
I'm just messing with you. Okay, and this is a mock turtleneck.
Mock neck.
Yeah, but
Because it's
mock
quite
because
low.
it-
It's like under, yeah.
You call it a mock neck? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, okay. This is a hooded sweatshirt or a hoodie.
Hoodie. I can
yeah.
live with hoodie.
You can live with hoodie. It's like some big sacrifice.
See how defensive English people get of our own language.
That makes no sense.
Because you know it's a weird language.
It's so stupid.
Even as someone who speaks American English, English is weird. Like,
We kind of just make it up as we go along.
you guys do. The history of English is making it up as you go along. And, my birth language is Korean, and I grew up speaking Korean all the time. And reading and writing Korean is so much easier. We don't have silent letters. We don't have like letters that could sound like other letters. It's just that's what it sounds like, and that's it. Like, there's no like the O can be an O or an aw. Like, there's none of that. And so Koreans learning English get so angry. It's very weird. Okay, these are jeans.
Jeans.
Okay. I kind of figured. I just wanted to know if I was just going to be surprised by something real weird.
Trainers.
These
Horrible,
are-
that's what they are.
The Valentino pink sneakers. Like, I love this pink, but the way he overdid it makes me dislike it.
The
Like,
street
people who've
style, it was killing. I went to the Valentino show, not the one just gone, the one before that. So it would have been what, September? The street style of this pink was absolutely honking because
Honking.
it threw it down as well. The weather was so bad, and there's girls in like Valentino pink bralettes and huge over the top pink layers. It was insane, and it just looked unwearable. They were like peacocking at a fashion show and still look bad.
Okay, people who know me from like the beginning of my channel know that I am obsessed with this one particular paint, Winsor & Newton designer gouache in Rose Tyrian, which is like a shade darker but no less vibrant than this pink. And so when the all pink collection came out, I had so many subscribers DMing me and be like, Zoe, it's your color. And at first, when I first saw the collection, I'm like, oh my God, it's so like, but I got sick of it so fast.
Yeah, me too.
So fast.
I this season, I was like, please move on, please.
I call it
For
headache
real.
pink now.
You call it what now?
Headache pink.
If it was a shade lighter, it would look like Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah, it's true.
But the one I'm talking about, the Rose Tyrian, is like a shade darker. But yeah, like it's just one of those things where it is definitely a novelty color. If you're in one of my design classes, let me just tell you this right now. Whenever I talk about putting together a color story and how it's important to have novelty colors, but to control your novelty colors, and it should be pop colors and used sparingly and smartly. This is what I'm talking about. Because if you don't, and you take your pop color and you use it like this, then people go around the internet calling it headache pink. Okay. Like that's what happens. All right. So you need to be careful about what you designate as your main colors. Okay. That's for my design students right there. This is just a t-shirt.
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 That you were going to surprise me with something scandalous.
Like
Okay.
The waistcoat is the waistcoat is triggering. This is, I can't
The
believe
gilet is triggering.
Gilet is a gilet.
I will just never be able to look at these things the same ever again. This is, and Scott, you may remember this, but like this is like a Bay Area staple.
Because 100. My favorite thing about the gilet is it's meant to be like a layering item to keep yourselves warm, and the Bay use it to wear over a t-shirt. That's my favorite.
It doesn't get that cold here usually. I will say my husband uses it as a layering because he is from the desert. He's actually from the Middle East, and so he gets cold really easily. But yeah, like the dudes here, they wear a t-shirt, long sleeve t-shirt, and then they wear this thing.
The thing I love about that is that it's the complete opposite to how heat works. Like your extremities get the coldest and your core and torso is the warmest. But they think absolutely not, t-shirt and a gilet. I
literally have like no waistcoats or gilets in my wardrobe because that's for me, that's how heat works.
Gilet and flip-flops is the outfit of outfits in the Bay.
It really is. Or like Allbirds.
Allbirds everywhere.
This is the peak commute wear for every European. In like Spain, Italy, and France, they'll have a suit on and one of these, like every single morning.
This over a suit?
Over a suit.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's like cold is like 15 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
The Spaniards are whacking these out straight away.
For sure. It's my favorite. It's the absolute staple for an Erasmus student.
A blue one.
If you're a student studying abroad and the abroad is the UK, you can guarantee a gilet is in 99% of their wardrobes. That is fact. If I put that on Twitter, fact, everyone 100% votes. 100%.
Yeah. When I lived in Madrid, like this is the most abundant piece of clothing I saw.
I didn't have anything like this even when I lived in Alaska. Like I had proper parkas and then I layered like undershirts under whatever I might be wearing. But here's the thing about a place like Alaska is like the outside is super cold in the winter, obvi. But because it's cold, number one, Alaskans know how to insulate their buildings properly. And number two, they crank the heat. And so when you get inside, like people are always saying, oh, dress in layers. No, you wear a sleeping bag to school and then you just shove it in your locker and just run around in a t-shirt because you're in this insulated building with really good heating. And then the body heat of 1,000 high school students running around, right? And that's how you dress in Alaska. You just take, you know, like that's how we went to prom. We wore these ridiculous mini dresses with snow boots, and we checked in our huge parkas and our snow boots in at coat check, and then put our little heels on, because you cannot wear those through the parking lot with all the salt spray. Anyway, I just went off on a tangent, but things Californians don't think about ever. Okay, but let me stop sharing my screen. And let me get back to the live stream here and make sure I'm getting all the questions. I think that's it for questions. And I think that's it. We are so over on time. I'm really sorry about that. But I'm just going to pretend you guys had a good time anyway.
It's okay. I'd have left. Like I would have just got up and walked off. It's fine.
You
No,
love
it was
me too
great.
much for that. How dare you? Any last parting words you would like to give to my audience who are, yeah, a lot of them are fashion geeks like me and you.
I end every interview or podcast with this, and it's because a lot of them are to do with sustainable fashion or climate change or in that nature. And I always say I would rather live in a world where everyone is doing something than someone doing everything. So pick your wins when it comes to being more sustainable, and just go hard for them.
That was
Brett?
really nice, much more eloquent than anything I was going to say. So I don't know. Follow me on Instagram.
So
something
Brett
like
says,
that.
listen to Scott. Nice, cool.
But honestly, like, you know how there's a lot of people out there who post the exact identical stuff on all their platforms, and it's so annoying, so you just end up following them in one place. But Brett and Scott, they actually do different content on TikTok and different content on Twitter and Instagram. Like Instagram is like, look at me, look so beautiful, look at me in this beautiful picture. And then on TikTok they have more conversations with the audience and do more things where they talk about sustainability more. So, and then also they do get in their underwear with their get ready with me's, if that's your thing. So, you know, whatever content you like, you should follow them everywhere. They're really interesting. These almost 2 hours was not close enough to capturing like just, you know, their cool personalities and just their really good insights they have to share with the world. You know, I don't like all of their posts because I don't want to feel like a stalker, but like pretty much I like all their posts. So, I mean, we do run around stalking each other on the internet, but you know, you don't want to seem like the stalker, right? Okay. So
It's a balance between stalk and abuse. That's the best bit.
well, I never heard a no from you, Brett. So
Exactly.
you just let me know. You just let me know when you want me to stop following you. And
Never,
I will.
never.
Exactly. That's what I thought. Anyway, that's it. And as I was saying at the beginning of this live stream, go make friends, get on the apps and start talking to people. This is how I met the twins. It like joining Clubhouse and just putting myself out there and just going into fashion rooms and talking to people was one of the best decisions I made for not just professional networking, but just making friends that I had a lot in common with, because we're both in the fashion industry and there's like that shared knowledge and joy of working in fashion and loving fashion and making friends. And there's always going to be that overlap of like networking and friendship, but that's what you need to do, you know? And again, I am also as introverted as some of you. After this call, I'm probably going to just pass out and zone out and not be around people for a couple of hours. That's just, if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. Okay. But, you know, your fashion friends are waiting for you out there. I'm going to drop a link to my Discord in the description box, along with their TikToks and their Instagrams and everything. Thank you, everyone, for joining during the live. Of course, the recording is going to be posted. So if you missed the beginning, don't worry. I'll have that recording up for you all. And as usual, if you love me, you will share, subscribe, like all the good ways you show me love. And I will see you in the next video. All right. I think